In a world drowning in noise, there is a forgotten blueprint for clarity. You are told to hustle harder, to react faster, to build an empire on shifting sand. But the architects of enduring success know a different truth, that the most powerful moves are made in stillness, that the most resilient structures are built not from frantic action, but from flawless thinking. Prestige Mind Collections presents the master framework for that construction. With this audiobook, How to Think Smarter: 7 Mental Models for Making Better Decisions. Chapter 1: The Architect's Mindset. What if I told you that the single greatest barrier to your success isn't your competition, your budget, or your luck? What if I told you it was the invisible architect living inside your own mind? An architect that, for most of us, is untrained, unchecked. An architect that builds walls where there should be bridges, that designs prisons when you have asked for palaces. It operates on outdated blueprints, using flawed materials and knee-jerk reactions to construct the reality you experience every single day. We spend our lives trying to decorate the rooms of this reality. We add motivational posters, we buy expensive productivity furniture, we change the paint, all while the foundation is cracked and the walls are closing in. We look for life-changing habits and productivity hacks to manage the chaos, but we rarely stop to ask who or what is creating the chaos in the first place. This audiobook is not about interior decoration. This is about seizing the blueprint. Consider the story of Alex. Alex is brilliant, perceptive, ambitious, full of powerful ideas. On paper, Alex is destined for greatness. Yet somehow, that greatness remains just out of reach. A promotion is missed. A promising venture stalls. A key relationship sours. Alex sees these as external events, unlucky breaks, the fault of others. But the true cause lies deeper. When a difficult project arises, the architect in Alex's mind whispers, "Remember what happened last time? The stress, the failure? Play it safe." So Alex hesitates, procrastinates, and delivers a competent but uninspired result. When a colleague offers critical feedback, the architect screams, "This is an attack. Defend yourself." So Alex becomes defensive, misses the valuable lesson, and damages the professional relationship. This internal architect isn't malicious. It's a survival mechanism. It's an emotional scaffolding built from childhood scrapes and past failures, designed with one purpose: to protect you. But the fortress it built to keep you safe as a child has become the very prison that limits you as an adult. It prioritizes the comfort of the familiar over the discomfort of growth. It prioritizes the speed of reaction over the wisdom of reflection. It is the reason we leap to conclusions, why we misjudge others, and why we find ourselves trapped in cycles, wondering why our best efforts always seem to lead us back to the same place. This is not a personal failing, it is a human failing. The cost of this default thinking is catastrophic, and it extends far beyond our careers. It's the argument that escalates because we assume malice instead of misunderstanding. It's the investment opportunity we miss because we fear the unknown. It's the years spent pursuing a goal that, once achieved, feels hollow because we never stop to ask if it was our goal or a goal programmed into us by our culture. But it is not our destiny. The most successful, influential, and brilliant minds in history discovered that you can fire this untrained architect. You can take over the job yourself. From the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who journaled his thoughts to rigorously examine his own judgments, to the billionaire investor Charlie Munger, who famously assembled a latticework of mental models to guide his decisions, the lesson is the same. They moved beyond default settings. They understood that to achieve extraordinary results, you must first master the art of critical thinking. They learned how to think smarter, not just work harder. They did this by mastering their mental models. A mental model is simply a representation of how something works. It's a concept, a framework, a lens you can look through to understand the world. A map is a model of a territory. A company's org chart is a model of its power structure. These models aren't reality, but they are essential tools for navigating it. And just as a master carpenter has a toolbox filled with saws, hammers, and planes, a master thinker has a toolbox of mental models to help them deconstruct problems, see reality clearly, and make better decisions. Why is this more important now than ever before? Because we live in an age of unprecedented complexity and information overload. We are bombarded with data, opinions, and sophisticated arguments designed to capture our attention and sway our judgment. Without a reliable set of tools to filter this noise, we are rudderless in a hurricane. Default thinking is no longer just a handicap, it is a liability. Your ability to think with clarity and precision is the most valuable asset you possess. This is the path to true self-improvement, not a collection of disconnected tips, but a coherent system for upgrading your thinking. And that is why you are here. Over the course of our journey together, I am going to give you 7 of the most powerful mental models ever conceived. I call them the architect's keys. These are not dusty academic theories. These are 7 master keys forged in the fires of philosophy, psychology, and real-world results. Each key unlocks a different chamber of your mind, giving you a new power, a new perspective. One key will teach you to deconstruct any problem to its core, allowing you to innovate where others only copy. Another will grant you the foresight to see the consequences of your actions long before they unfold. A third will show you the astonishing power of thinking backwards, of finding the light by first embracing the darkness. Together, these keys form the foundation of a new mindset, a mindset that is resilient, flexible, and ruthlessly effective. This is my promise to you. This journey will be demanding. It will require you to question your most deeply held assumptions. It will force you to become an active participant in your own thinking. But the reward is the greatest freedom a human being can possess, the freedom to choose how you see the world and the power to build the reality you desire. So, prepare yourself. Your apprenticeship begins now. The first key is about to turn, and with it, the door to the first principle of genius. Chapter 2: The First Principle's Key. In our last chapter, we laid the foundation. We accepted the role of the architect and acknowledged the flawed, default programming that governs so much of our thinking. Now, we will take the first step in rebuilding. I am about to hand you the first key. This is, perhaps, the most powerful key in the entire set. It is a master key capable of unlocking innovation, dismantling long-held assumptions, and giving you an almost unfair advantage in any field. But first, a question. How do you know that what you believe to be true is actually true? Think about it. Why do we follow a certain career path? Why do we structure our companies in a specific way? Why do we solve problems using established methods? For most of us, the answer is startlingly simple, because that's how it has always been done. We see the success of others and we copy it. We take the components of an idea and we rearrange them. We put a fresh coat of paint on an old building. This is called reasoning by analogy. It is the default mode of human thought. It is the mental shortcut of building your life, your business, and your beliefs based on what others have already done. It's efficient, it's low energy, and in a stable, unchanging world, it works reasonably well. But it is the single greatest barrier to breakthrough innovation. It is the thinking of the apprentice, not the master, the decorator, not the architect. Reasoning by analogy will only ever allow you to create a slightly better version of what already exists. The first principle's key unlocks a fundamentally different, more powerful mode of thought. First, principles. Thinking is the art of deconstructing a problem down to its most basic, elemental, and undeniable truths, the first principles, and then reasoning up from there. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle defined a first principle as the first basis from which a thing is known. It is the atomic level of a problem. It's the physics, not the analogy. It is the practice of looking at a prefabricated wall, and instead of asking where to place it, you ask, what is this wall made of? Steel, concrete, plaster. What are the fundamental properties of those materials? And what else could I build with them now that I am free from the prepackaged idea of a wall? This requires effort. It requires a curious and sometimes ruthless skepticism towards your own knowledge, but it is the one skill that separates the innovator from the imitator. There is no greater case study in the staggering power of this key than the work of Elon Musk and the founding of SpaceX. When Musk first decided to pursue his dream of sending rockets to Mars, he was confronted with an unbreakable truth. A fact universally accepted by the entire aerospace industry. The fact was, rockets are astronomically expensive. A single rocket cost upwards of $65 million, a price that made his ambitions impossible. Reasoning by analogy, the path of default thinking would have led to one conclusion: try to build a slightly cheaper rocket, maybe for $50 million. Try to get a small discount on the existing systems. But Musk didn't use analogy. He unlocked the first principles key. He asked a very different question. What is a rocket made of? Or more precisely, what are the raw materials that make up a rocket, and what is their cost on the open market? He broke it down. Aerospace-grade aluminum alloys, titanium, copper, carbon fiber. He discovered that the cost of the actual physical materials of a rocket was only about 2% of its total price. 2%. This was a revelation. It meant the astronomical cost wasn't a fundamental law of physics or economics. It wasn't an immovable first principle. The cost was merely the result of layers upon layers of analogy-based thinking. Bloated supply chains, inefficient manufacturing processes, and a complete lack of innovation, because that's how we've always built rockets. The high cost was a choice, solidified into a collective belief. So, reasoning up from the first principle that the raw materials were relatively cheap, SpaceX made a radical decision to build everything themselves by bringing manufacturing in-house and re-examining every single step of the process. From the ground up, SpaceX slashed the cost of launching a rocket by more than 90%. They didn't just iterate on the old model, they shattered it and built a new one. That is the power of this key. It allows you to see that the emperor has no clothes, while everyone else is complimenting his fine silk. So, how do you, the architect of your own mind, use this key? It is a disciplined, three-step process. I call it the architect's method. First, identify and deconstruct your current belief. Take a problem you are facing or a goal you are pursuing and identify the core assumption you hold about it, the common wisdom. For example, I need to get a master's degree from a top university to advance in my field. This is a widely held belief, a product of reasoning by analogy. Second, ask probing questions to find the fundamental truths. Now, you must attack this belief with relentless childlike curiosity. Break it down into its smallest parts. What is a master's degree fundamentally? It is a certificate indicating a certain level of knowledge and skill. What is a promotion or advancement, fundamentally? It is a recognition by others that you have the capacity to create more value. Ask yourself, is a certificate the only way to prove you have the capacity to create value? This question is the sledgehammer. The answer, of course, is no. Third, reason up from the foundational truths. Now that you have separated the goal from the method, you can build a new path. If the fundamental need is to prove your value and skill, you can now brainstorm new, potentially more efficient solutions. Could you build a portfolio of remarkable projects? Could you publish insightful research in your field? Could you launch a successful venture that demonstrates your expertise far more powerfully than any certificate ever could? You are now reasoning up from a first principle, and the new paths that emerge are often more direct, more creative, and more powerful. This key is not easy to use. It requires you to be the most demanding skeptic in the room, especially of your own beliefs. It takes more energy than simply following the crowd, but the crowd will only ever lead you to where they have already been. The first principle's key is your personal blueprint for discovering what is possible when you stop copying the world and start building it from its foundations. You now possess the tool to deconstruct reality, but reality doesn't exist in a vacuum. Every action, every decision creates a ripple that travels into the future. What happens after you make a decision based on this powerful new insight? How do you ensure your brilliant solution doesn't create 3 new problems down the line? In our next chapter, we will unlock a key that grants you the gift of foresight, a key that will allow you to see the future. Chapter 3: The Second-Order Thinking Key. In the last chapter, I gave you the key to deconstruct reality, to break any problem down to its fundamental truths. It is a powerful tool for innovation, but innovation, like any force, can be wielded wisely or foolishly. A brilliant solution, applied without foresight, can create more problems than it solves. This brings us to the story of the cobras in Delhi. During the period of British rule in India, the city of Delhi had a severe cobra infestation. The government, wanting to solve this problem quickly, implemented what seemed like a logical first-order solution. They offered a bounty for every dead cobra. The more dead cobras you brought in, the more money you received. The immediate result, the first-order consequence, was exactly what they had hoped for. The number of dead cobras being turned in skyrocketed. The government officials congratulated themselves on their cleverness. The problem, it seemed, was being solved. But then a strange thing began to happen. The number of dead cobras being presented for bounty remained high, yet the living cobra population in the city didn't seem to be decreasing. In fact, it was growing. The officials were baffled until they discovered the second-order consequence of their decision. Enterprising citizens, driven by the financial incentive, had begun to breed cobras in their homes. They would raise them, kill them, and turn them in for the bounty. They had turned the government's solution into a business. Horrified, the government abruptly canceled the bounty program, and this, in turn, created the disastrous third-order consequence. With the cobras now worthless, the breeders simply released them into the city. The final result of the government's brilliant plan was a cobra population far larger than it had been at the start. This story, now famously known as the Cobra Effect, is the perfect illustration of the danger of first-order thinking. First-order thinking is the default mode for most people. It is fast, easy, and seeks to solve the immediate problem with a direct solution. I have a headache, so I take a painkiller. Our sales are down, so we offer a discount. I am unhappy in my job, so I quit. These actions provide immediate relief, and because the relief is immediate, it feels right. But this is the tyranny of the immediate, and it is one of the most dangerous traps for any ambitious thinker. Second-order thinking, the skill this key unlocks, is the practice of thinking beyond that initial result. It is the discipline of asking the most important question in all of decision-making, and then what? First-order thinking sees the immediate reward of the discount, a quick bump in sales. Second-order thinking asks, and then what? Well, customers may come to expect discounts, devaluing our brand long-term. We might attract bargain hunters, not loyal customers. Our profit margins will shrink, reducing our budget for innovation. And then what? Our competitors, who held firm on their prices, will have more resources and a stronger brand, and will eventually overtake us. The first-order thinker solves today's problem. The second-order thinker wins next year's game. It is the single greatest differentiator between the amateur and the master in any field. It is the essence of strategic thinking. So, how do we systematically apply this key and avoid the cobra effect in our own lives? We use a simple but profound framework. First, whenever you face a decision, state your proposed solution clearly. Write it down. I am going to hire the candidate with the most impressive resume. I am going to work 16-hour days to get this project launched on time. I am going to take on a large loan to expand my business quickly. Second, analyze the first-order consequences. What will be the immediate result? Hiring the star candidate will likely impress your team and get you a skilled employee quickly. Working extreme hours will probably get the project launched by the deadline. Taking the loan will give you immediate access to capital. These are almost always positive, which is why they are so seductive. Third, and this is the crucial step, repeatedly ask the master question. And then what? Ask it for every first-order consequence you've listed. For the star hire, he has the best resume, so we hire him. And then what? His salary demands are high, straining our budget. And then what? We have less money for other hires or marketing. His personality, which we overlooked in favor of his resume, clashes with the team culture. And then what? Team morale drops, productivity stalls, 2 junior employees quit. We are now in a worse position than before. For the 16-hour days, the project launches on time. And then what? I am completely burned out. And then what? The quality of my work in the following month plummets. I get sick. And then what? A new, more important project is assigned to a colleague because I am seen as inconsistent. My short-term win has led to a long-term strategic loss. This process is your mental telescope. It allows you to peer into the future, to see the unintended consequences and hidden traps that lie beyond the horizon of the immediate result. You must consider the full spectrum of possibilities, effects on your finances, your health, your team, your market reputation, your family. Developing this long-term planning mindset requires a conscious trade-off. You are trading the easy dopamine hit of a quick fix for the deep, lasting satisfaction of a wise decision. You are choosing to be the chess grandmaster, not the checkers player. The grandmaster is willing to sacrifice a pawn now to win the game in 10 moves. The first-order thinker clings to every piece, only to find themselves checkmated by a future they failed to see. The first principles, key, gave you the power to deconstruct reality and find a brilliant move. This second-order thinking key gives you the wisdom to know when and how to play it. They are a powerful combination. But we are not done. We have learned to see the world as it is and to see the consequences of our actions within it. But what if the best path forward isn't forward at all? What if the greatest strategic advantage comes not from planning for success, but from obsessively planning for failure? In our next chapter, we will unlock a key that seems, on the surface, to be completely backwards. A key that will teach you that the surest way to win is to first understand all the ways you could possibly lose. Chapter 4: The Inversion Key. We have come far. With our first key, we learn to deconstruct reality. With our second, we learn to see its future consequences. You now possess a toolkit for building brilliant strategies and making insightful decisions. But let me ask you a question. What is the most common reason that brilliant plans fail? It is not a lack of intelligence or a shortage of resources. It is almost always a single, overlooked flaw. a hidden vulnerability that, under pressure, cracks the entire foundation, a risk that was never considered because the entire team was staring, mesmerized, at the glorious vision of success. Our culture is obsessed with success. We create vision boards, we study the habits of winners, we ask, how can I achieve my goals? But this forward-facing optimism, while motivating, can be a strategic liability. It can blind us to the cliff edge we are sprinting towards. Today, I am going to give you a key that seems, on its surface, to be completely backwards, a key that will feel counterintuitive, a key that asks you to temporarily abandon your optimism and embrace a powerful, practical pessimism. This is the inversion key. The principle is simple. Instead of asking, how do I succeed? Swing, you invert the question and ask, what could cause me to fail? The surest path to winning is often found by exhaustively identifying all the ways you could possibly lose, and then creating systems to avoid them. This is not a new idea. It is one of the most powerful and time-tested mental models in history. The ancient Stoic philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They would start each day by meditating on all the things that could go wrong. They could lose their wealth, their reputation, their health, even their life. This wasn't to create anxiety, but to build resilience, to mentally rehearse for adversity so that if it struck, they would be prepared and unshaken. They understood that a mind that has contemplated failure is a mind that cannot easily be broken by it. The great 19th century mathematician Carl Jacobi had a simpler mantra that he applied to solving complex math problems. Invert, always invert. He knew that many difficult problems could only be solved by approaching them backwards. But perhaps the most famous modern champion of inversion is the billionaire investor Charlie Munger, the partner of Warren Buffett. Munger has built a legendary career not by trying to be brilliant, but by consistently trying to not be stupid. He famously said, "It is remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent." His entire philosophy of risk management is built on inversion. When analyzing a potential investment, his primary question is not, how much money can I make? It is, how could this investment wipe me out? He says, all I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. This is the power of the key. It shifts your focus from the glittering, uncertain upside to the tangible, preventable downside. And in doing so, it provides a much clearer path. Think about it in your own life. We ask, how can I be more productive? The answers are a vague cloud of tips and hacks. But invert the question, what actions guarantee I will be unproductive today? The answers are suddenly crystal clear. Don't get enough sleep. Check my phone every 5 minutes. Keep every notification turned on. Say yes to every meeting request. Allow interruptions. By simply avoiding this not-to-do list, productivity naturally follows. We ask, how can I be happy? A question that has stumped philosophers for millennia. Invert it. What is guaranteed to make me miserable? The Stoics had the answer: envy, uncontrolled desire for things you don't have. Clinging to resentments. Surrounding yourself with toxic people. Sacrificing your health. A lack of purpose. If you can meticulously avoid these things, you remove the primary obstacles to well-being. You don't find happiness. You simply stop doing the things that make you unhappy. So how do we apply this key systematically to our projects and goals? We use a powerful technique known as a pre-mortem. It is the inversion of a post-mortem. Instead of analyzing a failure after it has happened, you analyze it before it has a chance to happen. Here is the architect's method for conducting a pre-mortem. First, the gathering. Assemble your team, your partners, or even just yourself with a pen and paper. Clearly state the plan or goal. For example, we are going to launch our new software product in 6 months. Second, the mental time machine. This is the critical step. You must say the following words. Imagine we are 6 months in the future. The launch has happened, and it was an unmitigated disaster. The product failed completely. Our customers hate it, our investors are furious, and the press is mocking us. It is the worst-case scenario. This framing is essential. By stating that failure is a foregone conclusion, it liberates everyone from the social pressure of appearing negative or disloyal. It turns criticism into a creative and necessary act. Third, the blameless brainstorm. Now, ask everyone to independently spend 10 minutes writing down every single reason they can think of for why it failed. A key team member quit. A competitor launched a better product a week before us. The marketing message was confusing. A critical bug was discovered on launch day. The price was too high. The server crashed. No reason is too small or too outlandish. Fourth, consolidate and identify vulnerabilities. Go around the room and have each person share one reason from their list until all unique reasons have been collected on a whiteboard. As you do this, you will see themes begin to emerge. These themes are your project's hidden vulnerabilities, the cracks in the foundation that you were blind to when you were only focused on success. Fifth, create the avoidance plan. Now, turn this negative list into a powerfully resilient strategy. Identify the top 3 to 5 most probable or most damaging causes of failure. For each one, you must create a specific, proactive plan to prevent it or mitigate its impact. This is how you build your floor. This is how you make your plan robust. The Inversion Key gives you a form of practical pessimism, a negative wisdom that ironically leads to far more successful outcomes than blind optimism ever could. It is the architect's tool for ensuring a structure can withstand any storm, because they have already mapped out every possible point of failure and reinforced it. We now have keys to deconstruct reality, to see the future, and to avoid failure. But all of these depend on one critical factor: you. How can you be sure you are qualified to even use these keys in a given situation? How do you avoid becoming the fool with a tool? In our next chapter, we will forge the key of intellectual humility, a key that will teach you that the greatest wisdom lies not in what you know, but in knowing the precise boundaries of your own ignorance. Chapter 5. The Circle of Competence Key. Welcome back. We have journeyed through deconstruction, foresight, and inversion. We have assembled a powerful set of keys for unlocking complex problems. But an architect with a powerful tool they do not understand is more dangerous than one with no tools at all. An overconfident hand can turn a key of immense power into a weapon of self-destruction. This brings us to the most important chapter in this entire audiobook. This is the key that governs all other keys. It is the architect's ultimate safety measure, his source of quiet confidence, and his most powerful defense against catastrophic error. This is the Circle of Competence Key. Let me tell you a story from the world of business. In the 1990s, the Quaker Oats Company was a titan. For over a century, they had masterfully built brands like Gatorade and Life cereal. They were experts in the slow, steady, predictable world of grocery store shelf products. They knew manufacturing, distribution, and brand building in this arena better than almost anyone. This was their circle. Then they decided to buy a company called Snapple for $1.7 billion. Snapple was the opposite of their business. It was a trendy, fast-moving beverage company built on quirky marketing and a constantly changing product line. Quaker, the expert in one world, had confidently strode into another. They believed their brilliance was portable. The result was a catastrophe. The Quaker executives did not understand the fast-paced culture of the beverage world. Their attempts to integrate Snapple into their slow-moving systems failed. The brand languished. Just over 2 years later, they sold Snapple for a mere $300 million, a staggering loss of $1.4 billion. What went wrong? It was not a lack of intelligence. It was a lack of intellectual humility. The brilliant minds at Quaker failed to respect the boundary between what they knew with deep, earned expertise and what they only knew superficially. They stepped outside their circle of competence, and they paid the price. This mental model, most famously championed by the investors Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, is brutally simple. We each have areas of deep understanding and areas of complete ignorance. The size of your circle is not important. What is critically, vitally important is that you know exactly where the perimeter is. Imagine your knowledge as a small, well-lit island in a vast, dark ocean of the unknown. The goal of a wise life is not to drain the entire ocean. The goal is to know the shoreline of your island with absolute precision. Inside that shoreline, you can operate with speed and conviction, but the moment you step off the sand and into the water, you are in danger. No one has lived by this principle more successfully than Buffett himself. During the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s, Buffett and Munger were openly mocked. The media called them dinosaurs, old men who didn't get it. They watched as tech stocks with no profits and no clear business models soared to unbelievable heights, and they did nothing. They didn't invest a single dollar. Why? It wasn't because they were arrogant. It was the exact opposite. It was because they practiced a profound intellectual humility. As Buffett explained, he had no idea how to tell which of the hundreds of new technology companies would have a durable competitive advantage in 20 years. He couldn't predict the winners. The entire industry was outside his circle of competence. To invest would have been to gamble, not to make a reasoned decision. When the bubble burst in the year 2000, wiping out trillions of dollars of speculative wealth, Buffett's discipline was vindicated. His refusal to step outside his circle was not a sign of being out of touch. It was the masterstroke of a genius who understood his own limits. The greatest danger for any intelligent, ambitious person is what I call the expert's trap. Your success in one area creates a halo of confidence that convinces you your brilliance is universal. A great lawyer thinks they can be a great restaurateur. A brilliant engineer thinks they can be a great stock trader, but outside your circle, you don't know what you don't know. You are unable to distinguish the true expert from the charismatic charlatan. You are playing a game where others know the rules and you don't. So, how do we, as architects of our minds, define our own circle? This is not a quick exercise. It requires ruthless honesty. First, you must conduct a competency audit. Ask yourself, where is my track record of repeatable success? What subjects could I confidently debate with a real expert? What topics do I understand so deeply that I know the nuances, the history, and the counter-arguments to my own beliefs? Be honest. Reading a few articles on a subject does not place it in your circle. True competence is earned through thousands of hours of deliberate practice and experience. Second, you must draw the boundary by creating an I don't know list. This is perhaps the most powerful act of intellectual self-awareness you can perform. Actively list the industries, skills, and subjects you do not understand. Geopolitics, cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence development, corporate tax law. Writing this list down is an act of liberation. It frees you from the pressure of having an opinion on everything. It is your map of dangerous territories, the places where your default answer must be, I don't know enough to have a truly informed view. Third, you must operate with a disciplined policy. When a problem or opportunity arises inside your circle, act with conviction. This is your territory. You have the advantage. When it arises at the edge of your circle, proceed with extreme caution. This is your learning zone. Acknowledge your partial ignorance and seek to expand your understanding slowly and deliberately before taking any significant risk. When it arises clearly outside your circle, your default answer is no. You have 3 valid options. Ignore it, partner with someone whose circle it is squarely inside, or decide to commit the immense time and effort required to genuinely expand your own circle to include it. This key is not about limiting your ambition. It is about concentrating your energy where it will have the greatest effect. It is the ultimate form of risk management. It is the source of the quiet, unshakable confidence that comes not from believing you know everything, but from knowing you are not foolish enough to pretend that you do. We have now built a robust framework for understanding ourselves, our decisions, and the boundaries of our own knowledge. But our lives are not lived in a vacuum. They are lived with, through, and sometimes against other people. And what is the most common error we make when interpreting the actions of others? We assume malice, when a much simpler explanation is far more likely. In our next chapter, we will acquire a key that acts as a universal antidote to paranoia, misunderstanding, and needless conflict. It is a key that will instantly improve your relationships, both personal and professional. Chapter 6: The Hanlon's Razor Key. We have spent our time together forging the architect's internal world. We have learned to deconstruct problems, foresee consequences, invert our thinking, and know our own limits. But the architect does not build in a vacuum. Every structure, every plan, every decision exists within a complex ecosystem of other people, and it is in our interactions with these people that our best-laid plans most often go awry. Let me paint you a picture. You've spent all morning crafting an important, time-sensitive email to a colleague. It contains everything they need to move a critical project forward. You press send, feeling a sense of accomplishment. An hour passes, then 2. By the afternoon, there is still no reply. What is the story you begin to tell yourself? The default story, for many of us, is a dark one. They're ignoring me, they don't respect my work, they're probably trying to make me look bad, to sabotage the project so their own can get more attention. Your stomach tightens, your focus shatters, you begin composing an angry follow-up in your head. You have, in short, allowed your mind to be poisoned. This is the poison of assuming malice, and it is one of the most inefficient, energy-consuming, and destructive mental habits that exists. Today, we forge the key that serves as the universal antidote. This is the Hanlon's razor key. The principle, often attributed to a Robert J. Hanlon, is this: never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. Now, I find the word stupidity to be a bit harsh. I prefer a more expansive version. Never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by stress, ignorance, forgetfulness, competing priorities, or simple incompetence. Hanlon's razor is a mental model that shaves off the most complex and least likely explanation for a human action, malicious intent, in favor of simpler, more probable ones. It is not a call to be naive or to let others walk all over you. It is a tool for strategic thinking and emotional self-preservation, grounded in a simple understanding of statistics. Think about it. For someone to act out of malice, they require a sophisticated set of conditions. They must have a reason to harm you, the focus to plan it, the energy to execute it, and the lack of conscience to feel good about it. This is a complex, high-energy state. Now consider the alternatives. The colleague who didn't reply to your email. What is more statistically probable? That they are weaving a complex plot to sabotage you, or that one of these things happened? They are overwhelmed with 200 other emails and haven't gotten to yours yet. They are in back-to-back meetings and haven't had a moment's peace. Their child is sick at home and their focus is elsewhere. They read your email, intended to reply, got interrupted, and it slipped their mind. Your email was poorly worded, and they don't understand what you need. They simply are not a very organized person. The odds overwhelmingly favor one of the simpler explanations. By defaulting to malice, you are choosing to believe in the least likely scenario, and you are paying the price for it. The cost of this default setting is immense. There is the internal cost, the flood of cortisol and adrenaline, the anxiety, the hours wasted ruminating and building a negative case in your head. There is the relational cost. You approach the other person with suspicion and hostility, putting them on the defensive and eroding trust. And most importantly, there is the strategic cost. You cannot solve the real problem. If the real problem is your colleague's disorganization, approaching them with anger about their sabotage will not make them more organized. You end up fighting a phantom enemy while the real weakness in the system festers. Applying Hanlon's razor liberates you. The person who cuts you off in traffic is not a villain on a personal quest to ruin your day. They are most likely a distracted driver who is late for an appointment. The cashier who is rude to you is not attacking you. They are likely exhausted from standing for 8 hours and dealing with a dozen other difficult customers. A competitor launching a similar product is not stealing your idea. They are likely responding to the same market signals you are. This razor is a tool of emotional intelligence that allows you to depersonalize the slights of daily life. So how do we put it into practice? It is a simple 3-step drill. First, notice the sting. The moment you feel that flash of anger or feel wronged by someone's action, just pause. Acknowledge the feeling. I feel like I'm being ignored, or I feel disrespected. Don't act on it, just notice it. Second, apply the razor. Ask yourself the critical question: what are 3 other possible explanations for this person's behavior, assuming it is not about me and it is not malicious? Force your brain to generate alternative hypotheses. 1. They're overwhelmed. 2. They misunderstood. 3. They have something going on in their personal life. Third, act on the most charitable explanation. Take the most likely, benign explanation from your list and use that to frame your response. Instead of the angry follow-up email, you send a gentle one. Hi there, just wanted to gently follow up on my email from this morning to make sure it didn't get buried. The timeline on this is a bit tight, so please let me know if you have any questions. This approach achieves 2 things. First, it protects your own peace of mind. Second, it is far more likely to get you the result you actually want. You have addressed the potential problem, a buried email, without creating a new one. A needless conflict. Now, a crucial caveat. Hanlon's razor is a default setting, not a universal law that excuses all bad behavior. Malice does exist. Deceit exists. If you apply the razor, communicate clearly and charitably, and the person continues to act in a way that is harmful, you no longer have a series of isolated incidents. You have a pattern. The razor's true power is that it helps you filter out the vast majority of unintentional slights, so that when a true pattern of malice emerges, you can see it with absolute clarity and deal with it decisively. By defaulting to charity, you build bridges, solve real problems, and conserve your precious mental energy for the battles that actually matter. You give others the benefit of the doubt, and in doing so, you give yourself the benefit of peace. Hanlon's razor helps us simplify our understanding of other people. But what about our understanding of the world at large? In a universe of infinite complexity, filled with competing explanations for everything from a scientific phenomenon to a business failure, how do we find the most likely truth? In our next chapter, we will sharpen a new kind of razor, a razor that cuts through complexity itself and reveals the elegant, simple truth that is so often hiding in plain sight. Chapter 7. The Occam's Razor Key. We have spent the last chapter learning to simplify our view of other people with Hanlon's razor, saving ourselves from the exhausting work of assuming malice. But the human mind's love for complexity does not stop there. We are natural-born storytellers, and we often prefer a complex, dramatic, and interesting story to a simple, boring, and likely truth. We are drawn to conspiracy, to intricate plots, to hidden variables. This tendency is a massive drain on our mental energy and a significant obstacle to effective problem-solving. Today, we forge our final razor, a key designed to cut through the fog of complexity and lead us to the most probable truth with ruthless efficiency. This is the architect's tool for finding the signal in the noise. This is the Occam's razor key. Let me take you to a hospital ward in the early 20th century. A strange phenomenon was occurring. At night, patients on a specific ward reported seeing ghostly apparitions and hearing faint whispering voices. They would become agitated, confused, and paranoid. The staff was unnerved. The first explanation, the most dramatic one, was supernatural. The ward, they whispered, was haunted. Other, more scientifically minded doctors proposed complex theories, a unique form of mass psychological contagion, or perhaps a rare neurological side effect from the medications being administered. Each theory was elaborate, requiring a host of new assumptions about ghosts, the human psyche, or unknown pharmacological reactions. The problem was complex, and so they assumed the explanation must be too. Then, a nurse, applying the principle we are about to discuss, chose to investigate a simpler path. She ignored the ghosts and the complex medical theories. She looked at what was physically different about that ward. One thing stood out. A new state-of-the-art oxygen system had been installed. She checked the valves. She discovered that one of them had a tiny, silent, and consistent leak. It wasn't enough to trigger any alarms, but it was just enough to slightly lower the oxygen levels in the ward at night, causing mild hypoxia, a lack of oxygen to the brain, in the sleeping patients. And what are the classic symptoms of mild hypoxia? Confusion, agitation, and auditory and visual hallucinations. The problem wasn't ghosts. It was a leaky valve. The simplest explanation, the one with the fewest new and extraordinary assumptions, was the correct one. This is the essence of Occam's razor. The principle takes its name from William of Occam, a 14th-century Franciscan friar and philosopher. His original formulation in Latin was pluralitas non est ponenda sine necessitate, which translates to plurality should not be posited without necessity. The more common, modern phrasing is this: among competing hypotheses, the one with the fewest assumptions should be selected. This is one of the most misunderstood mental models. Occam's razor does not say the simplest explanation is always true. Reality is often incredibly complex. What it does say is that the simplest explanation is the most likely to be true, and therefore it is the one you must investigate and rule out first. It is a tool of probability and efficiency. It prevents you from wasting your time and resources chasing phantoms while a leaky valve is right under your nose. Our brains, however, are not naturally drawn to this kind of elegant simplicity. We actively resist it. There are 3 reasons why. First is our narrative bias. We are creatures of story. An intricate conspiracy theory, with its villains, its plots, and its secret knowledge, is a far more compelling narrative than a simple mechanical failure or a boring oversight. Second is our tendency for agency detection. We are wired to see intention and purpose everywhere. It is far more comforting to believe a powerful hidden agent caused a market crash than to accept that it was the result of a chaotic cascade of millions of uncoordinated, independent decisions. And third is a kind of intellectual vanity. Devising a complex explanation for an event can make us feel intelligent and sophisticated. Admitting the answer might be simple and obvious can feel, well, a little boring. The wise architect must fight these tendencies. You must learn to fall in love with the boring, simple explanation because it is so often the right one. Let's see the razor in action. In medicine, it is the absolute bedrock of diagnosis. If a patient comes to a doctor in winter with a cough, a fever, and a runny nose, the doctor's immediate hypothesis is the common cold. This explanation requires very few assumptions, only that the patient, like billions of others, was exposed to a common virus. The doctor does not start by testing for a rare tropical disease they once read about. That would require a cascade of unlikely assumptions. That the patient recently traveled to the tropics, was exposed to a specific vector, and is the 1 in a million case to appear in this city. A good doctor starts with the simplest hypothesis and only moves to more complex ones if the patient's symptoms don't improve or if new evidence appears. In business, this key can save companies from catastrophic mistakes. Imagine a company sees that user engagement on their mobile app has dropped by 30%. The team gathers. The complex theories fly. A competitor has launched a secret campaign to lure our users away. Young people no longer think our brand is cool. There's a fundamental shift in the market away from this kind of app. These are all possible, but they require many large, unproven assumptions. The architect using Occam's razor asks a simpler question first. What did we change? They look at their own actions. They discover that the engagement drop happened the day after they pushed a new app update. The simplest hypothesis is not a conspiracy, but that the update contained a bug. This hypothesis has only one assumption: a programmer made a mistake. Before you spend $1 million on a new marketing campaign to fight a phantom competitor, you should first have your technical team check the code. So, how do we apply this razor with discipline? It is a 4-step process I call the assumption audit. First, clearly define the phenomenon. Be precise. Not the business is struggling, but our customer churn rate increased by 15% in the third quarter. A clear question gets a clear answer. Second, brainstorm all plausible explanations. List every potential cause you can think of. Do not filter or judge them yet. From the mundane to the extraordinary, get them all down. Third, conduct the audit. This is the crucial step. Go through each explanation one by one and list every single new thing that would have to be true for that explanation to be correct. Literally count the number of assumptions. For the customer churn problem, the explanation. Our main competitor lowered their prices requires one assumption. The explanation, a negative story in an obscure online forum created a viral wave of anti-brand sentiment, requires many. That enough of your customers read that forum, that they were convinced by the story, that it went viral, and that it was the cause of them leaving. Fourth, rank by simplicity and investigate. Arrange your hypotheses in order from fewest assumptions to most. This is your battle plan. You must start by trying to prove or disprove the simplest explanation. Did your competitor lower their prices? This is a knowable fact. You can check it in 10 minutes. Only when you have conclusively ruled out the simplest, most elegant explanations are you permitted to move down the list to the more complex and less likely ones. This key, when used in concert with Hanlon's razor, is a formidable defense against the confusion of modern life. Hanlon's razor simplifies your interpretation of people's motives. Occam's razor simplifies your interpretation of the world's mechanics. One assumes ignorance over malice. The other assumes simplicity over complexity. Both steer you towards the most probable reality. This is the architect's tool for achieving clarity. It is a commitment to the idea that the most elegant solution is often the most direct. It does not deny that complexity exists, but it refuses to indulge in it unnecessarily. We now have razors to simplify our understanding of the world. But what if the greatest danger is not the complexity of the world itself, but the fact that our understanding, our beautiful, simple model, is not the world? What happens when we fall in love with our map and forget that it's just a representation of the territory? In our final lesson, we will learn the most profound key of all, a key that will teach us how to hold all our knowledge, all our models, and all our beliefs lightly, and never mistake the blueprint for the building. Chapter 8: The Mental Map of Reality Key. We stand now at the threshold of our final lesson. Over our journey, I have handed you a set of powerful, sharpened keys, a key to deconstruct any problem to its core, a key to see the cascading consequences of your actions, a key to find victory by mapping out failure, a key to know your limits, and keys to shave away the complexities of both human interaction and reality itself. The architect's toolkit is nearly complete, but I must now give you the final, most important key. This is the key that governs all the others. It is the one that, if forgotten, will cause all the others to eventually fail you. It is the key that protects you from the ultimate danger, not the complexity of the world, but the arrogance of your own mind. To understand it, we must travel back to the 1930s, to France. The French military, still haunted by the brutal trench warfare of World War I, had spent a decade and a fortune building the most magnificent defensive line in human history, the Maginot Line. It was a technological marvel, a vast interconnected chain of underground fortresses, concrete bunkers, and heavy artillery positions stretching for hundreds of miles along the German border. It was a perfect, impenetrable solution to the problem of trench warfare. The French High Command had drafted a flawless map for winning the last war. They fell in love with their map. They worshipped it. In 1940, the German army, armed with a new reality of fast-moving tanks and air power, simply went around it. They blitzed through the Ardennes forest, a hilly region the French map had deemed impassable for a modern army. And the Maginot Line, that multi-billion-franc monument to genius, was rendered utterly useless without firing a single significant shot. The French generals had forgotten the most profound truth in all of strategy. The map is not the territory. This principle, first articulated by the scientist Alfred Korzybski, is the capstone of all clear thinking. It is the simple, humbling, and frequently ignored idea that our models of reality are not reality itself. A menu, with its beautiful descriptions, is not the meal. The word water written on a piece of paper cannot quench your thirst, and your blueprint for a building, no matter how detailed and brilliant, cannot keep you warm on a cold night. Every single key I have given you in this audiobook, first principles, second-order thinking, inversion, circle of competence, Hanlon's razor, Occam's razor, is a map. They are powerful, useful, and elegant maps for navigating the world. But they are not the world itself. To forget this is to build your own Maginot Line. This key is about understanding the three great dangers of our mental maps. First, and most obviously, maps are reductions. By their very nature, they simplify. A map of a city's subway system is a work of genius. It strips away the chaos of the streets, the buildings, the parks, and shows you only what you need to get from one point to another. But you would never mistake that map for the city itself. You understand that details have been omitted to make it useful, so it is with all our mental models. They are useful because they simplify, but we fall into danger when we forget what has been left out. We act on our simplified model and are then blindsided by a complex, real-world detail that wasn't on our map. Second, and more dangerously, maps become outdated. The territory of reality is a living, breathing, dynamic thing. Technology changes, markets shift, competitors adapt, cultures evolve. The world is in constant flux. Our maps, however, are often static. We form them based on our past experiences, and we etch them into our minds as the way the world works. Then we stop checking the territory. The Maginot Line was a brilliant map for the territory of 1918. By 1940, the territory had changed, but the map had not. How many of us are still navigating our careers, our relationships, and our lives using maps drawn a decade ago? Third, and most profoundly, we begin to worship the map. This is the ultimate intellectual sin. It's the point at which we become so attached to our theories, our ideologies, and our self-identity as someone who understands this, that we actively reject reality when it contradicts our map. We see data that conflicts with our model, and instead of questioning the model, we question the data. We encounter a person who doesn't fit our neat psychological categories, and instead of questioning the categories, we label the person as an anomaly. This happens when being right, according to our internal map, becomes more important to our ego than being effective in the real world. We would rather fail with a map we love than succeed by adopting a new one. So, how do we use this key to stay grounded in reality? How do we become a true architect, constantly surveying the land? We adopt a territory-first approach built on 4 simple habits. First, you must always name your map. When you approach a significant problem or decision, consciously identify the mental model you are using. Say it out loud. I am using the inversion map to think about the risks here. Or, my mental map of a good leader involves these 3 specific traits. This simple act creates a critical separation. It changes the framing from "this is how the world is" to "this is the map I am currently using to interpret the world." It gives you the psychological space to change the map without shattering your worldview. Second, you must get your boots muddy. An architect cannot design a building solely from their office. They must visit the site. They must feel the soil, watch the sun, and understand the flow of the wind. For the thinker, this means seeking out raw, unfiltered data from the territory itself. Don't just read the market research report. Go talk to your actual customers. Don't just analyze the sales data. Use your own product, especially the checkout process. Don't just theorize about a social issue. Go and listen without judgment to the people whose lives are actually affected by it. This is ground truthing your models. Third, you must appoint a red team. The Central Intelligence Agency uses a powerful technique called red teaming, where an independent group is assigned the task of trying to defeat a proposed plan. They are paid to be intelligent adversaries, to find the cracks in the logic. In your own life, you must actively cultivate your own red team. Seek out the smartest people you can find who disagree with your map. Don't just tolerate dissent, treasure it. A strong dissenting opinion is a gift. It is a free look at the territory from a completely different vantage point, revealing the blind spots on your own map. Fourth, and most importantly, you must celebrate changing your mind. Our culture often frames changing one's mind as a weakness, a sign of being fickle or uncommitted. This is a catastrophic error. In a dynamic territory, a refusal to update your map is a form of intellectual suicide. You must reframe this for yourself. The act of saying, "I was wrong," is the ultimate sign of strength. It is proof that you are more committed to the truth of the territory than to the comfort of your old map. It proves that your loyalty is to reality, not to your ego. This final key, the map and the territory, is what keeps the architect humble, curious, and effective for a lifetime. It transforms the other 6 keys from a static collection of tools into a living, breathing system for learning and adaptation. It is the key that unlocks not just cleverness, but wisdom. You now possess the 7 keys to the architect's mind. You have the tools to deconstruct, to foresee, to invert, to know your limits, to simplify your view of people, and to simplify your view of reality. And now, you have the final governing principle to hold it all together. The toolkit is complete, but a set of keys is worthless until it is used. A blueprint is just paper until the building begins. In our final chapter, we will not learn a new key. Instead, we will discuss how to carry these keys with you every day and how to begin the true lifelong work, building the examined life. Chapter 9: Living the Examined Life. And so we arrive, not at an end, but at a commencement. For the past several hours, we have walked together through the design studio of the mind. We have forged one by one a set of master keys. Now, as the sun sets on our time together, I look at you and I see your hands are no longer empty. They are full. You are holding the 7 keys to a more deliberate, a more insightful, and a more examined life. Let us, for a final moment, feel the weight and shape of them in our hands. Remember the first key, the first principles key, the foundational tool that allows you to shatter assumptions and deconstruct any problem to its core. Undeniable truths. It is the key that separates the innovator from the imitator and gives you the power to build from the ground up. Remember the second-order thinking key, the mental telescope that allows you to see beyond the immediate results of your actions, to anticipate the cascading consequences in the future, and to trade short-term gratification for long-term wisdom. Remember the third, the paradoxical inversion key, the tool of the strategist that teaches you that the surest path to success is often found by exhaustively mapping out every possible route to failure and then simply avoiding them. It is the key to building resilient, unbreakable plans. Remember the fourth, the circle of competence key, the humble anchor that reminds you that the size of your knowledge is not as important as the clarity of its boundaries. It is the source of quiet confidence, protecting you from the folly of stepping into games you do not understand. Remember the fifth and sixth, our twin razors, Hanlon's razor, the key of social wisdom that shaves away the assumption of malice, preserving your energy and your relationships. And Occam's razor, the key of logical clarity that shaves away unnecessary complexity, guiding you toward the simplest and most probable truth. And finally, remember the 7th key, the one that governs them all, the map and the territory. The ultimate principle of intellectual humility, reminding us that all our models, all our beliefs, and even all these keys are just maps, useful but imperfect representations of a complex and ever-changing reality. It is the key that commits you to a lifetime of learning and adaptation. This is the architect's toolkit. It is complete, but knowledge, as we have learned, is only a map. It is inert, it is trivia, it is a set of finely crafted keys that will rust in your pocket unless they are turned in the locks of real-world problems. The great challenge now is not to remember what these keys are, but to forge the habit of using them, to bridge the gap between knowing the path and walking the path. And for that, you need a practice, a discipline, a place to do the work. I will offer you the single most effective method I have ever found for integrating these models into your daily life, the practice of keeping a thinking journal. Your mind, left to its own devices, is a whirlwind of vague feelings, half-formed thoughts, and cognitive biases. A journal is the gymnasium where you can slow that whirlwind down. It is the design studio where you can take the chaos of your thoughts and give them concrete form on paper, where they can be examined, questioned, and rebuilt with intention. The practice is simple, but it is not easy. First, choose your cadence. Perhaps you will do this once a week, on a Sunday evening, to reflect on a challenge for the week ahead. Perhaps you will do it daily, or perhaps you will turn to it only when you face a significant decision at a crossroads in your life. The frequency is less important than the consistency. Second, begin with a clear prompt. At the top of a fresh page, define the object of your thinking. The problem I am trying to solve is, or the decision I am facing is, or the belief I wish to examine is. Be as precise as you can. Third, select your keys. Do not try to use all 7 at once. That would be like trying to unlock a door with 7 keys at the same time. Choose 2 or 3 that feel most relevant to the problem at hand. If it's a complex business or creative problem, perhaps you'll choose first principles and inversion. If it's a difficult decision with long-term impact, you might choose second-order thinking and your circle of competence. If it's an interpersonal conflict, you might reach for Hanlon's razor and the map and the territory. Fourth, and most importantly, explore the problem on paper using the keys as your guide. Ask yourself questions. Applying first principles, you might write, what are the absolute fundamental truths of this situation? What are the assumptions I am making that might not be true? Using second-order thinking, you would write out the immediate consequence and then ask, again and again, and then what, and then what, until you have a chain of cascading effects. Using inversion, you would write, let's assume this fails completely. What would have caused that failure? Let me list at least 10 reasons. Applying your circle of competence, you must ask, is this decision squarely inside my circle of deep expertise, or am I on the shoreline, or worse, out in the open ocean? Using Hanlon's razor, what are 3 alternative explanations for this person's behavior, assuming it was not malicious? Using Occam's razor, what is the absolute simplest explanation for this event? Have I ruled that out before considering more complex theories? And using the map and the territory, you would ask, the model I'm using here is telling me X. How can I go out into the real world and test if that is actually true? How could my map be wrong? The goal of this journal is not to find the perfect answer. The goal is to improve the quality of your thinking process. It is the act of practice itself that strengthens the mind. Over time, you will find you need the journal less and less because the models will become second nature. You will begin to see the world through these lenses automatically. You will simply become the person who thinks in this way. And that is the final transformation. This journey was never about just collecting a set of mental tools. It was about adopting a new identity. It was about becoming an architect of the mind. This identity is defined by a set of virtues that these keys cultivate. It is defined by radical curiosity, the engine that drives you to ask why and deconstruct problems to their first principles. It is defined by strategic patience, the discipline to think in second orders, forgoing the easy win today for the checkmate that comes 10 moves from now. It is defined by practical pessimism, the wisdom of inversion that allows you to build robust plans that can withstand the storms of reality. And it is defined, above all, by intellectual humility, the humility to know your circle of competence, to apply your razors with charity and clarity, and to always remember that your map is not the territory. This is the examined life Socrates spoke of, a life that is not lived on autopilot, a life of intention, of clarity, and of purpose. It is a life of continuous learning, of constant adaptation, and of the quiet, powerful confidence that comes from knowing that while you cannot control the world, you have mastered the tools to navigate it. Our journey together is now at its end. I have given you the keys that were given to me. My voice will soon fade, but your work, the great, beautiful, and lifelong work, is just beginning. Look around you, at your career, at your relationships, at your community, at your own mind. You are standing on a construction site. There are foundations to be strengthened, walls to be torn down, new, beautiful, and daring structures to be built. Do not let these keys sit idle. Take them, use them, turn them in the locks of the most difficult problems you can find. Build a career that is resilient and innovative. Build relationships grounded in understanding and trust. Build a community that is wise and compassionate. But first, and most importantly, build a self that is thoughtful, humble, and free. The blueprint is in your hands. The keys are yours. Now, go. Building. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If the ideas within this audiobook have resonated with you, I invite you to join the community of architects who are committed to building an examined life. You can share this work with a friend, a colleague, or anyone you feel would benefit from having these keys. The most powerful ideas are those that are shared. You can add a like to this audiobook. It serves as a simple signal to others on a similar path that this may be a worthy investment of their time. And finally, I invite you to subscribe to continue our journey together. It is an open invitation to explore more frameworks for a well-thought-out life. I would be honored if you would share in the comments which of the 7 keys you feel you need the most right now and why. Your insights are a valuable part of this ongoing conversation. Thank you.